This is Truth Recon. I'm Agent D. Baker, retired narcotics detective, SWAT team member, U.S. Navy combat vet. I investigate missing persons, expose corruption, and fight for accountability. If you want the full receipts, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to Greene County, Alabama, down in Utah, Alabama. And I'm going to say the quiet part out loud. When you put a law enforcement agency in charge of a gambling business, you don't get public safety, you get a slush fund. You get power with almost no oversight, and you get exactly what a brand new state audit just laid bare. Multi-million dollar, let me say it again, multi-million dollar chaos in the Greene County Sheriff's Office. By the end of this episode, you'll understand how the bingo money flowed, how basic accounting rules were ignored for years, and why the Constitution doesn't let the sheriff turn bingo into a second payroll, and what accountability should look like next. Now, let's get to the facts. According to the official audit filed October 3rd, 2025, covering October 1st, 2018 through April 30th, 2024, state examiners charged Sheriff Jonathan Benison with $5.34 million in undocumented spending. $5.34 million. After the sheriff sent in some records, they granted partial relief of a whopping $370,000. That still leaves $4.97 million due and unpaid. And that amount, per the report, is being certified to the district attorney and to Attorney General Steve Marshall for collection. Now, right quick, if you're not familiar with Greene County, Alabama, because to most counties, $5 million is not a lot of money for an entire county to have to come up with, or even a sheriff's office, depending on where you are. Greene County, Alabama, make sure you hear this next part that I'm about to tell you. We are talking about a county. It's literally the smallest county population-wise in the entire state of Alabama, with a whopping a little over 7,000 people in population. The entire county, a little over 7,000 people. That's the county we're talking about here. That's why when we're throwing around these numbers of 5 million, 4.9 million, that's a lot of money for this very, very small county and small county government, an extremely small sheriff's office. Now, if you've been following me, you've heard me, of course, go into a lot of detail about Walker County, Alabama. And some of that had to do with my previous work experience in Walker County and my previous capacity. Now, also, if you have been following me for a while, you've heard me talk about Greene County, because I have stated numerous times, all this just came out, but I've been stating for the past 4 months now, numerous times, that Greene County is also extremely corrupt, because it is, and it has been for a long time. I mean, it is definitely very close to as corruptive as Walker County, if not even more corrupt. So that's what we're talking about. I know some of you people that have been keeping up with Walker County are saying, no way, there's no way. I'm telling you, it is from the top down. Talking about an extremely corrupt place. A lot of amazing, great people that live in Greene County, just like in Walker County. But the government's there, very, very corrupt. None of this surprises me. None of it. We're also talking about a place where at some point, it's probably been in the last 15 years, actually. Yeah, probably within the last 15 years, where the state was trying to shut down the gambling operations in Greene County. And the Greene County sheriff at that time literally had his deputies go out and attempt to block the state troopers, the Alabama State Police, from entering the facility to seize the gambling operations, because in the state of Alabama, gambling is illegal. Now, that all happened 10, 15 years ago. Now, since then, they've worked out something where where it's legal there, and here we are. Shocking, right? Why do you think they wanted all this? Come on. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure all this out. But like I said, I'm talking about an extremely corrupt county and very small. I mean, the entire sheriff's office, there may be at most 10 deputies, at most. That may be an overshot. And for a quick example, back when I was working one time, I had to go into the Greene County jail to interview someone. And I walked in and was led to an interview room where they brought in an inmate, set them down with me, and I was able to interview them. Not one time did I see an actual sheriff's office employee, not one in the entire jail. The entire operation was being ran by trustees at the jail. I am not making that up. The trustees were in charge of booking and releasing prisoners, their property, getting them to the interview room. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So that's what we're talking about. Now, that was at least 10 years ago. But again, that's what we're talking about. I guarantee you not much, if anything, has changed there. All right, back to this audit. And so talking about this audit, that's not me talking. That's the state examiners of public accounts. And there's more. The audit says this office failed to reconcile bank accounts monthly, didn't keep cash books reflecting all activity, lacked adequate controls over collecting and safeguarding money. They weren't issuing receipts consistently, even for SA offender fees. Deposits weren't made on time. Pistol permit cash couldn't be reconciled to bank deposits. If you're thinking, that sounds like accounting 101, well, you're right. And guess what? The exact same problems were flagged back in 2014 and again in 2018. We're talking about 10 years of red flags. Same office, same sheriff. Here's the structural problem. In Greene County, the sheriff regulates bingo, licenses, rules, operations. That's already a massive concentration of power. But the audit says the sheriff's own rules went beyond what the Constitution of Alabama allows. The Constitution lets the sheriff regulate bingo. Full stop. It does not let the sheriff convert bingo assessments into a catch-all law enforcement bank account or backdoor salary supplement. It's clearly stated that it cannot be used for those things. Yet the audit describes exactly that. Bingo assessments used to supplement salaries of sheriff's department staff and for other law enforcement purposes. The auditors say that is not authorized by Section 32-7 of the Alabama Constitution. That's not a technicality. That's a constitutional boundary being crossed with public money. Now, these numbers should make everyone stop. Let's talk about the money. From 2018 to 2024, the bingo fund took in about $16.9 million and spent about $15.8 million. Out of that, $3.16 million paid directly to employees as incentives on top of county salaries reported on 1099s without documentation explaining why those payments were made. So they're just supposedly paying employees, not documenting why, reason, nothing. Just, we paid this to employees. Another $2.1 million, no invoices, no receipts, paid out to consultants, attorneys, merchants, restaurants, hotels, auto repair shops, gas stations, and grocery stores. Now, to my knowledge, and I may be wrong, but I don't think I am. To my knowledge, there's not a hotel in Greene County. So I'm guessing this has to be for traveling purposes for sheriff's office employees, maybe to schools. I don't know. Or it's more than likely just completely made up. Plus 16,226 in various sheriff's funds with missing documentation, including payments to a tire company and a vending commissary company. You can argue policy all day. You can't argue math without receipts. Now, who didn't get paid that was actually supposed to? While this was happening, Greene County organizations were complaining they stopped getting their regular disbursements from the sheriff-controlled bingo fund. The county commission, emergency management, the school system, local nonprofits. In January 2024, the mayor of Utah said the city hadn't been paid since April and believed the sheriff was collecting over $600,000 a month from bingo fees. Imagine being a school or nonprofit waiting on those funds while millions are flowing without documentation. And this is always the big argument for gambling. And let me be straight. I'm not against gambling being legalized in Alabama. I'm not against that. But one of the main arguments that people, well, it will help the schools. And in some states that is true. That was one of the big selling points of Greene County being able to be allowed to do this. But look at what's happened. They cut the schools off. That's the problem with this. The auditors say the sheriff refused to sign the standard management representation letter. That letter is routine. It's where you certify that everything's been turned over. Nothing material was withheld, and you complied with the law. He later submitted some documents that shaved down the total by about $370,000. Then he attended the exit conference by phone, but the big picture didn't change. The state still certified nearly $5 million as due and unpaid. Why isn't this surprising? Listen, I work narcotics. I've seen what cash does to systems with weak controls. When law enforcement sits on top of a gambling revenue stream, the incentives twist. You get gatekeeping over who can operate and how, and then you control the money those operations generate. If that's not a conflict of interest, I don't know what is. It's literally a conflict of interest baked into the model. It's not just Greene County. It's any county where the referee is also the paymaster. That should never happen. This is exactly why. When the Constitution says, and when I say Constitution, keep in mind, I'm talking about the Alabama State Constitution. When the Constitution says regulate bingo, it doesn't mean run a shadow payroll or fund whatever looks good this week. It means set rules, issue permits, and make sure the nonprofit operators comply. That's it. The minute you start treating those assessments like discretionary sheriff's funds, accountability dies. And I want to tell you, I've seen this almost the exact same thing, obviously not at this level as far as the money was, but almost the exact same thing with some volunteer fire departments around the state. And I've worked my share of some corruption cases around the state following the money. And I've almost the exact same thing. It's almost, and obviously not every time, but it is almost, it's a very high percentage when any of these agencies like this are in charge of gambling, the money goes missing. I mean, I've seen it so many times. I mean, this is what happens when you put someone in charge of millions and millions of dollars that has absolutely zero counting experience, zero business running experience. This is what happens. All right, let's get to the receipts list. What the audit shows was paid. So here's a few line items the audit tallies during the period. Documented disbursements from the bingo fund, not even counting the almost $5 million that wasn't adequately documented. $3.1 million to the Greene County Commission, $668,000 for bingo clerks payroll, about $485 million in incentive pay to employees. Let me say that one again. We're talking about one of, if not the smallest sheriff's office in the state of Alabama, one of the smallest law enforcement agencies in the country. About $4.85 million in incentive pay to employees, $1.53 million for professional services, $2.2 million in legal fees, $90,000 in gift cards to employees. Let's say that one again. Jesus Christ. $90,000 in gift cards to employees. $90,000 in gift cards. And then nearly $500,000, so nearly $500,000 labeled donation. Stack that next to the finding that invoices and receipts were missing or inadequate for millions of dollars, and tell me how a taxpayer or donor or a nonprofit verifies anything. You can't. That's the point. The Constitution of Alabama, Section 32-7, empowers the sheriff to regulate the licensing and operation of bingo games for nonprofits in Greene County. The audit says flat out, it does not authorize paying other law enforcement expenses from those proceeds. And it does not authorize supplementing salaries. When the auditors highlight that the sheriff's own rules allowed those things, they're saying the rules themselves exceeded the constitutional grant of authority. That means it's not just sloppy bookkeeping. Let's be real. Over 5 million, it's not sloppy bookkeeping. It's using public authority in a way the Constitution doesn't permit. And this has been going on for a long time. Remember those repeat findings? 2014, 2018, now 2024. Same basic failures to reconcile accounts monthly. Same failure to keep a complete cash book. Same failure to issue receipts, deposit daily, safeguard collections. A decade of warnings. When the guardrails stay down that long, it stops being an accident. It becomes culture. If you live in a small county and someone tells you, don't worry, the sheriff regulates the gambling, we've got it under control. Here's your case study right here. You need separation of roles. You need independent accounting. You need receipts, invoices, reconciliations every month for every fund. And you need the money routed to the beneficiaries the law actually names: the county, the cities, the schools, the nonprofits. Not a second payroll, not $90,000 in gift cards, not undocumented consultants. Every corruption case I've ever been a part of, every single one involves at some point undocumented consultants. All right. What accountability should look like. So what do we do now? Collection and recovery. The report says nearly 5 million remains due and will be certified to the DA and the Attorney General. That process needs to move. No slow rolling. Criminal and civil review. If funds were spent outside constitutional authority, outside policy, or without proper documentation, prosecutors should evaluate criminal statutes, from misuse of public funds to ethics violations. And I guarantee you, all the above exist here. All the above. Civil actions should pursue recovery from bonds or insurances where applicable. Immediate controls. Reconcile every bank account monthly. Maintain full cash books. Issue receipts for every dollar. Deposits daily, no exceptions. Firewall the gambling revenue. If the Constitution says regulate, then regulate. Don't spend. Route assessments to the beneficiaries as prescribed in law with third-party accounting. Third-party accounting and public dashboards that show what came in, what went out, to whom, and why. Supported by invoices the public can see. We call that accountability. It's simple stuff that should have already been happening. And if it would have been, we wouldn't be dealing with this right now. Independent oversight. This is the most important by far. You have to have independent oversight in any of this. Establish an external audit. Establish an external audit committee with authority to freeze disbursements when documentation is missing. Tie every payment to a lawful purpose with a paper trail. I feel like I'm teaching a second grader accounting right now. Personnel review. The audit lists 38 employees who received incentive payments. Some totals over $100,000 each. Reported on 1099s. Every one of those transactions needs a legal review, tax review, and HR review. If the payments were unlawful or unauthorized, call them back. Greene County residents, nonprofits, school leaders, city officials. This isn't about politics. It's about trust. You were counting on those bingo disbursements and didn't receive them. Again, we're talking about schools, nonprofit organizations that help people. Step forward with dates and amounts you were promised, if you haven't already. Demand copies of bank reconciliations, cash books, and disbursement packets. Invoice, receipt, authorization for every payment during the audit window. Sunlight fixes what secrecy breaks. You're going to hear, we helped the community. We donated. We supported programs. We paid legal bills. We paid staff who worked hard. None of that excuses missing receipts or unconstitutional uses, or definitely illegal uses. In public finance, if it isn't documented, it didn't happen. That's a simple rule. That's the way it works. That's the only way you can have accountability at all. And if the Constitution doesn't authorize it, it's not allowed. It's not hard to understand, no matter how good the story sounds. It is not allowed. Let's come back to the theme. Law enforcement authority over a gambling revenue stream is a structural conflict. You're granting a badge the power to regulate the house and hold the house's money. That is a design for failure. If you found $5 missing in a property room, you'd do an audit. Here, the state just flagged nearly 5 million with inadequate documentation and repeat control failures going back a decade. This isn't a surprise. It's a system doing what it was set up to do. Now, we're going to keep tracking this. We'll pull the filings as the DA and AG move. We'll talk to nonprofits who are supposed to get paid. They'll talk to us. We'll map out the incentive payments and the vendor checks. And we'll keep pushing for a clean model where the sheriff regulates and independent entities handle the money transparently. And this is one of my favorite things to do, by the way. I love following the money. Love it. It's something that's just always been very interesting to me. If you've got documents, emails, invoices, payment notices, board minutes, please email them to me. Send them. I will never mention any names, ever. I never mention any sources whatsoever. I'm very protective of any of my sources. If your nonprofit was promised funds and got cut off, tell us the when, how much, and who told you. If you worked in that office and tried to fix the books, I want to hear from you. We're going to get to the bottom of this. I mean, obviously, I hope the state does, and I have all the confidence that they will. But we're going to stay on top of this, and I about guarantee you, if this is handled correctly and investigated correctly, at least one person, if not multiple, is going to end up in federal prison. I about guarantee you that. If it's not handled correctly, then we won't. That's how we'll know if it was handled correctly or not. This is Truth Recon. I'm Agent D. Baker. For the missing, against corruption. Like, follow, and share. Full episodes on Spotify, Apple, and Rumble, and YouTube.